Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be reacting to Let's Talk About World Building and how Limbus and Arknights mastered it. I do apologize if I'm breathing a little bit too much. It's mostly because of my allergies. I'm having a hard time breathing. I did take allergy meds, but I don't know how long it's going to take to kick in. But anyways, I did have some people suggest me to check this out, so I'm looking forward to it. And I did get prior permission from the content creator. Thank you, Sunur. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but thank you very much for giving me permission. So I do hope you enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it, then be sure to give it a like, comment below, subscribe, and share. And as always, make sure to support the original video as well. Now let's get started.
Okay, world building. Let's talk about it. I feel like with many games, world building is really not talked about a lot. Actually, I'd probably go so far as to say it's sort of being made less of a focus with newer games. Which to a lot of people saying that probably sounds off, but here's the thing. When it comes to this video, there's two major examples I want to focus on for world building. Arknights and Limbus Company for two reasons. One, most of the games I play nowadays are gacha games, and most of the games I talk about are gacha games. A depressing existence, I know, but the second reason is, even aside from the stigma of gacha games, these two actually have some of the best world building I've seen from games, period. And that's mainly helped because they're live service games, Limbus also having 2 games prior to it to build up the world. But what I've noticed is that some newer live service games, mainly gachas, actually not caring too much about the world and just focusing on specific characters for whatever they build up.
I think one thing to note here, though, is that the director who writes the story for Limbus Company is a huge fan of Arknights. So I would want to, this is something I only found out because of the collaboration, and also because he was like fanboying over meeting the Arknights people or the team and bragging about it or getting the signature and whatnot. But I do wonder, because of that, if a lot of his writing was influenced by Arknights itself, which might be why that they have similar good aspects to them when it comes to their stories, or at least the storytelling, the way that they present their stories through words and their world building. Now, obviously, for Limbus Company, they have the benefit of having 2 single-player games to build the world before having Limbus Company made. So that obviously helps, while Arknights did not really have that from my understanding. So I guess, in a sense, Arknights is building the world for Arknights Enfield when it does come out, so that'll help as well. But I do think Limbus Company is strong even on its own, but it becomes even stronger when you actually delve into the side content and like the novels, the webtoons, but also the single player games that they have for Project Moon. So my guess, before I watch this whole thing, is that Limbus and Arknights has a very similar way of presenting their world building, or at least making it easy for players to digest it. Is my assumption, but I guess we'll watch.
Reason being, why the fuck does it matter to build up an entire place in the game's world when you can instead just spend the time investing in an easy to like character and rake in the cash that way? Or go the Brown Does 2 route and Jesus fucking Christ. But because Limbus and Arknights have some of the best world building I've ever seen, I want to talk in depth about them and what makes them work, why they're a masterclass, and what they do to make their world work that other games don't. But hell, aside from that, this is just a topic I've wanted to fanboy about for a while, so this video is pretty much a self-indulgent excuse to do that. K, thanks, bye, intro over. So, Arknights, there's about 2 ways I can show why its world building is peak. One involves me sitting back and doing a boring analytical breakdown, which personally I would rather be violently unmade in this corporeal realm than to do something that bland. While the other involves me rambling on about the lore like a madman, which perfectly shows just why it works. So I'm gonna do the second one because it's way more fun. Now be prepared for a rant, but this rant is the best showcase I can give of the world. Arknights has an entire world map for the setting of the game, Terra, and all the places on the map are actually different. Like, the difference between Columbia and Sargon is in generic RPG Town 101 versus generic RPG Town 102. The geography, cultures, and races of the characters from them are largely different. Like, for example,
that's true.
Columbia is mainly inspired by America. Big corporations have a lot of power and are looking for whatever scientific breakthroughs they can have, which is why technology from Columbia, especially anything for the military, is seen as some of the best. They're a superpower in the world, and some coups may have tried to happen. But Sargon, on the other hand, is, instead of being this big industrial area, very diverse. There's some places ran by
Dates.
royalty and all that, but the rural areas are just tribes, and the technology is... Backwater is a bit of an undersell. I mean, dear God,
Yeah.
some fucking fish gods, don't question it too much, pulled up to the tribes one day and dropped their fucking rock mixtape on them, and that shit was so revolutionary to them. It was like seeing a light bulb go off for the first time. It was so significant to where they started
so
to
funny.
idolize the song. But that's how backwater the place is. It's muddy as fuck, old school as fuck, and hell, even the people who live there are crocodiles, so it's much different than America Light version. Which, and actually, thinking about it,
I remember
it's
this
a muddy
trailer
backwater place with crocodile
or
people.
animated PV.
Sargon's basically just fucking Florida, isn't it? Okay, maybe that wasn't the best example I could have used for talking about differences. Instead, Lithuania. Let's focus on that. It's based on Germany.
Lithuania, the one that
No,
everyone talks
That
about.
one pretty significant point in history you're probably thinking about is not a thing in Terra. I mean, yes, they did have a dictator, and yes,
Yes,
he
they
may
did.
have done human experiments.
Yeah.
Okay, damn, this video's off to a really bad start. But Lithuania's culture is mainly shown in music and the importance they place on it, and their love for music is weaved into how much they've explored arts, basically magic in the world of Arknights. And the best showcase of that is the, it's a German word, so forgive me for what's about to transpire. The Gudenskats.
It's okay, I don't know how to pronounce that either.
Is a piece of music made from Originium Arts that is Lithuania's national anthem and binds everyone of the country under one nationality.
the contract.
And that's honestly an undersell.
Right?
The Golden Movement has had, over years, more and more added to it from Lithuanians to where it helped mold the culture, morals, and even the politics. And because for countless years this same Song of Arts was built up, it became nearly impossible to fully perform due to the length, which shows how important the song was to the entire country, Lithuania. Built off of 10 nations, I mean, essentially nations, probably closer to something
that
like
was probably
states
called something
coming
else.
together, all holding a copy of the song, all under that same banner. However, Lithuania didn't remain as 10 states in total, because in the year 1967, Syracusa,
I think another, and I think this is what he's trying to build up to, but I assume that he's going to say that because the historical major events are pretty similar to what we have in our world, it's a lot easier to remember. And because the nations are so distinct, just like in our world, and very much parallel to it, aside from like a few merges and a few not merged. I don't even know. My brain's like dying. I'm sorry. I'm still jet lagged. But perhaps because of that, that is why it's a lot easier for people to remember things, is my guess. Let's see if I'm right.
imagine Italy with the weather of Britain, and it's pretty much run by the mob.
See, like you could
split
just say
away
it's
from
basically
Lithuania to
this
become their own
country, but
sovereign
with this
nation.
and this and this
And as an act to
traits.
show their sovereignty, they ripped apart their copy of the movement. So basically imagine if every state had their own copy of the Declaration of Independence and California wanted to become its own country, so they publicly ripped it to shreds. As you would imagine, that does not sit well with all the other states a part of Lithuania, which caused a war due to that act of treason. And the Golden Song was broken. Because of this, Lithuania was in a state of chaos until the Witch King, the dude that later goes crazy and maybe does human experimentation, don't question it too much, rebuilt the song. He literally just walked in and fucking soloed that shit. The most complicated song in the history of the world, and he himself rewrote it, rebuilt it, and recognized
The true
Syracusa
genius
as its
of the
own sovereign
world.
nation. Now, because Syracusa split off from Lithuanian culture, they were kind of left off on their own to really market an identity. And because of this, some other cultures found their way into Syracusa. Like, their laws and all that were really inspired by the Colombian system, but their faith was also heavily influenced by Laterano. What is Laterano? Imagine the Vatican. It's a hyper-religious nation mostly inhabited by the Sanctum. Unsurprisingly, them bitches got halos and wings. Now,
Yes.
there are other races than Laterano, but they're mostly not, like, okay, they're not, like, outright discriminated against, but they do
But they
get
are.
the vibe that Sanctas are kind of just put on their own pedestal above them is sort of how the situation's looking. And the problem with that is that the main race of Laterano that aren't Sanctas are Liberi, from Iberia. Yeah, they were the most creative with the names, but a big part of that reason is because Laterano borders Iberia, and much like Syracusa, Laterano religion has a large influence there. Now, off in the past, Iberia was on track to
I
being a
remember.
superpower. They were having a golden age, but one thing completely destroyed that dream, the
The
profound silence.
monsters.
Where the Seaborn, which is a race of monsters that are a hive mind which evolve to whatever you fight them with, that has gigantic gods leading them, and in an alternate reality, wiped out the
I
human
still
race
need to
and
beat you
evolved
in
to
the
fly to outer
Limbus
space to hunt even
collab.
more, destroyed them. When the profound silence happened, the Seaborn tore through Iberia, aided by the Church of the Deep that wants everyone to be assimilated
I remember
into
this
the
trailer.
hive mind of the Seaborn, which caused Iberia's power on the global stage to dwindle. Hell, their strongest military force was the Navy, and now the seas are filled with countless Seaborn that can tear through their naval force. But the profound silence wasn't actually terrible for everyone, surprisingly. It ended up helping a country called Siesta, in a way. Siesta was a trading outpost that was going to be used by Colombia
Wasn't
to
this like
establish
the
trade with Iberia
anniversary
using
trailer?
the seas as a way. But problem is, that sea was now filled with murderous fucking monsters that are always evolving as a hive mind, and the place they were trading to, yeah, they got fucked raw by those things, so they maybe ain't looking as lucrative as a partner as they were in the past. And because of that,
Lucrative
Siesta
as a
used this
partner.
leverage of not being the most useful asset to Colombia to retain their independence. Only problem is, Victoria immediately wanted to annex them, so they decided to fall
Of
back under
course.
Colombia's jurisdiction while still having their sovereignty. Now the question is, why did Victoria want to do that shit? Answer is, it's based off of Britain.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all the context it needs. Now, the throne of Victoria remains empty. Asterisk, because I don't want to get into spoilers, and a lot of Victoria's current state is main story spoilers, but they have a long track record of
Oh
getting
boy,
into
okay.
wars. The most notable one being the Battle of the Four Emperors. It was a war against
Yes,
the
I
Empire
remember
of Gaul,
this.
which is inspired by France, because they pissed off pretty much all of their neighbors. They hurt the trading routes of Ursus, which is Russia, and they helped Colombia get their independence, which pissed off Victoria because originally Colombia was under Victoria's rule. And then Gaul started to want to take Lithuania as a vassal state through political alliance and marriage.
You should have stopped
In turn,
there.
that helped fend off Victoria and Ursus from doing anything to him. Problem. The person they were trying to do this to, the ruler of Lithuania at the time, was the Witch King. Remember the dude that rewrote the Golden Song, the most complex
Yeah, the one
arts
that
in history on
soloed
his
the
own,
thing.
pretty much known as the best arts caster in the entire world? Yeah. They pissed him off with that game plan. He thought it was an insult, and as a very, very measured response, he turned the Gaul envoys into statues and shipped them back to Gaul. Okay, he does a little bit of trolling. Then, as a result, Gaul declared war against Lithuania, yet even though the leader of Gaul, Corsica I, knew his opponent was the leader of Lithuania and the best arts caster known to man, he was kinda confident, because he knew the situation with Syracuse's independence caused some internal turmoil. And Victoria got double penetrated after their wars with Colombia and Iberia didn't pan out the best, and Ursus was about to be busy with trying to invade Kashmiris. Imagine Poland with more dubstep and a lot of knights. Now,
Yes.
this would be the 10th invasion they've done against them. A bit much, not gonna lie, but whatever. Means their oppositions were busy. So, perfect time to invade. Hell, he even got some casters from the Sarkaz royal court. They're fucking all strong as hell. Perfect time to invade. So yeah, the Witch King dropped a fucking catastrophe on Gaul's fleet. Basically, imagine like a Category 10 EF5, whatever terminology you want to use in layman's terms. Imagine the biggest fucking tornado possible, and he dropped that on them. And that tornado also drops gigantic chunks of originium that gives you rock cancer, which when it affects you and you die, because you will die, it slowly kills you, your body explodes and gives other people that rock cancer. Now this is a natural disaster in the world. It's so devastating to where nations put their cities on nomadic platforms so they can actively flee catastrophes and not have everything turn to dust. Hell, people are employed as catastrophe messengers just to say when one of those is about to hit so they can have everyone run away as fast as they can. And the Witch King dropped one directly on Gaul's fleet. Yeah, because of this,
he should not have done that.
A stalemate. Then Victoria saw what happened and joined in against Gaul because they were still mad about Colombia and how Gaul was looking to constantly expand. Then Ursus also agreed to go after Gaul, which made the Battle of the Four Emperors. Ursus, Victoria, and Lithuania versus Gaul. Russia, Britain, and Germany against France. Victoria being led by the Duke of Wellington. Now, for whatever ungodly reason, the Empire of Gaul decided this was an amazing time to double down and keep fighting.
What?
He was somehow fucking confident. And on October 17th,
whenever I hear this, I'm just so amazed by how
here's a map detailing
stupid he was.
Battle. And in just 4 days, the rest of Gaul's forces were crushed and the emperor killed. And the result,
this is like
Gaul
a facepalm moment.
Off the map. Their capital used to be known as the capital of Terra, and that was turned to rubble.
I remember hearing about this from another video that I reacted to earlier. And my gosh, whenever I hear it, I'm just like, what on earth were your brain cells, dude? I get that you have pride, but your pride is gonna wipe out your entire army and all the people under you. So, why on earth would he double down like an idiot? Whatever. Anyways,
Their
let's keep
culture, their
going.
history, language, technology became obsolete. 30 million Gaul
Clearly.
refugees were left. Some died due to the barren lands or the internment camps they were put into. And Gaul's land was split up between the four nations. And that
I imagine if he had not doubled down, then, you know, Gaul would actually somewhat survive by the time we start the game. But no, 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 no. He thought it was a wonderful idea to double down and then make his entire empire go into extinction, I guess. What is wrong with him? Does he not have brain cells?
is the best example as to
wait.
why I love
Rulers typically
Arknights'
don't
world
have
building. And no,
common sense.
it's not because the
should
Battle
know.
of Four Emperors was basically the Battle of Waterloo, but instead France couldn't come back after it. Now, I'm not saying it isn't based that terrorist France canonically got destroyed and forgotten by the world, cause that was based, but it's not the sole reason I love the world building. It's because I was able to start talking about Lithuania and seamlessly, or at least I hope it was seamless, connect all of these different countries in Terra and say how they affect one another. I was able to waffle on about all of these different places, and when talking about them, they're so interconnected to where it's hard not to mention the others. And honestly, if I
In some ways, I believe Arknights is a great game for those who love history. Like the people who would totally look into it on in their free time and read up on all the major historical events in different countries and look into politics and all of that. If you love that kind of thing, then this game is probably going to be for you. And if you like, I guess, tower defense, then even better.
wanted, I could have easily done this with the entire world map of Terra. I could have took you on
that
a
would take forever,
goddamn
though.
Miss Frizzle magical school bus adventure if I wanted to. I just decided not to because of time. But that's what I love. It feels real in a way. The areas and nations in the world don't feel isolated from one another. It doesn't feel like, oh, for 100 years, X country did this and no one else ever once had a hand in anything they did. Because that's what a lot of stories fall into. When thinking
That's
about how
true.
to build up all of these different areas in their world, a lot of them think about that place and the vibe they want from them, which leads to those areas being built with only that area in mind. It's like they built the places in their world as very tall skyscrapers that are miles apart from one another, while something like Arknights is a city of fairly tall buildings right beside each other. Even if the places themselves are not as built up as locations in other stories, which, to be honest, not many other worlds have places as detailed in Arknights, but even if they weren't, the fact that they are all connected in the example I used prior makes the city seem much bigger than the sum of its parts.
I do have to say, though, that Punishing Graven also does a pretty good job with this. They even have like 2 chapters solely dedicated to building the world and some major concepts that you would want to understand better. Of course, I do believe that more than Arknights and Limbus Company, it's a lot more. Actually, no, I guess it's the same as Limbus Company. They're both very character driven. Arknights is also character driven, but you can definitely feel the world moving a lot more. Kind of like One Piece. One Piece does a very good job at making the world feel so alive. The main characters does not need to be there in order for the world to move, and it doesn't need to be based on the main character's actions for the world to move either. You will see times when, or have times when events happen without anything to do with the main character, and yet it somehow influences how the main character and his crew ends up in certain situations later down the road, and why it ends up being worse for them compared to if nothing happened. So things like that are what I am becoming a lot more fond of as I get older. When I was younger, I did not really care for world building, if I'm going to be honest. I was very much the type that enjoyed mystery, psychological thrillers and things like that when I was younger, gore, that type of stuff. So for me, character driven stories were more important than world building. But as I get older, I have a new appreciation and a stronger like compared to character driven stories. I mean, I still like those, but I have a strange fondness for stories that really take their time with the world building. So Limbus Company is one, Arknights is another, and probably Punishing Grey Raven. Those are like the main three that I really enjoy because of the world building. Although for Punishing Grey Raven, it's a little bit more difficult because they don't make it very easy to consume and understand or digest concepts as quickly if you're not like a sci-fi nerd, or if they use a lot more words that aren't easy to remember in some ways. I mean, it is easy, but not in the sense that Limbus Company Arknights uses their words, specialized words. Like, it's easy for you to remember names of places in Limbus Company and in Arknights. I wouldn't say the same for Punishing Graven, but that game does do a good job with their world building as well. It just isn't to the degree of Limbus Company and Arknights though, but for those who really like sci-fi, they do a very good job of it if you like reading actual sci-fi novels. If you're more into like actual like gaming, then maybe it's not the game for you, but like things like that are what I like to appreciate. And there's always something fascinating about playing games that actually do take the time to focus on world building. Whether it's an intervalo in Limbus Company or an event story in Arknights, or if it's chapter 10, I think that's what it was, in Punishing Grey Raven, with one of the major concepts being revealed and major truths. It's always a joy to understand like the past, how the past was, and how it'll affect the future to those degrees, I guess.
Because those parts aren't isolated from one another. Instead, they're inseparable. Yet in spite of this, in terms of vibe and how they visually look, they're different as hell. You can easily tell all of the countries apart, but they still feel connected because the history of these fictional places cannot be removed from one another. It doesn't feel segmented, except for more isolated nations like Aegir, but there's plot reasons behind that. It all comes together to be a world that is greater than the sum of its parts, and it's fitting in a way. Yes, there's a lot of talk about wars or having plots to cause more, and if it ain't war on the table, there's gotta be some new political scandal to take the stage in geopolitics, cause yeah, Terra is
I do also want to note that one thing I very much appreciate about Limbus Company and Arknights is that you can very much tell when someone is part of a specific group or country. Like, for example, Ursus people from Arknights dress in a certain way, have certain colors in their outfits, and they act in a certain way. I mean, they're all different people, but because they share a culture, you can very much notice that cultural aspect in them. For example, in Limbus Company, we can say, I'm trying to, I guess the easiest one to, so that's not a spoiler, would be Limbus Company itself. It's a company, and you can definitely see what outfits they're wearing and what kind of people tend to join. That makes it a lot easier. And within the company itself, there are like specific departments, and you can very much understand what their role is and how they are, typically, I guess. So that's one thing I really appreciate. I think one of the things that you tend to notice is the united aspect of the groups. Like in other games, you have various characters, and you have various factions. The only difference is that they very much look different from each other, which is fine because, you need to appeal to different types of people. The problem is that even if like in their official art or whatever, they look really cool and like you can kind of see that they're sort of from the same place, there also is something that kind of feels off when they're all together. Like you might love their story and the group because of that, but they feel very different from each other, kind of segmented in some ways. Like they're very individualistic, if that makes sense. It's like when you put an individualistic type of people and then put them all together into one group, and that's what it feels like. Kind of like a hero's party trying to fight the demon lord. that typically has like that type of like there's unity, but it doesn't feel like one culture, if that makes sense. And perhaps in some games, I don't really have anything in mind in particular, I'm just saying this, but perhaps in some games, you might notice some nations being a lot more unified in like the culture and how that influences the character design and also the character behavior and attitude and personality and how they interact with other people. You might see that to some degree, but it's not to this degree where you can definitely sense the political and the cultural aspect on why they clash with each other the way that they do and why they don't have good opinions about another character just from the fact that they are from a specific type of group. And I think Limbus Company and Arknights does a really good job with that in having that unity be formed, but also show the antagonistic parts become a part of that. Because when you think about it, there are countries in our world who just hate each other for being in that country. I mean, individually, when they actually meet, it might not be like that, but they might like joke about like, I really don't like this country because they did this and this and this, you know? So that kind of aspect is something I really like about Limbus Company and Arknights, because they do show aspects of that. A lot of prejudice and stereotyping between each other until they actually get to know each other or continue to reinforce that. You don't really see that in other games because they want you to like the character. They want the character to like you. In the end, there might be some friction, but in the end, that friction goes away. That's not really the case with Arknights and Limbus Company. You could definitely feel the annoyances that they have for each other, the hatred that they might have, the discomfort. It's just things like that that makes the world a lot more vivid, because in the real world, there will be no one who likes you 100%. I mean, there might be, but like that's really rare. And even then, you know, not everyone will like you. But in games, they want you to like the character. They want the characters to like you so that you'd want to pull for them, which makes sense. So that's why I'm very intrigued by Limbus Company and Arknights, because they don't do that. You could definitely feel that they don't like you. Or that they just really are trying to, what's the word, bear with you. You might know who I'm talking about if you're thinking about Arknights, but also Limbus Company too. So, you know, I mean, you kind of get affectionate with the characters eventually after you go through a lot of things. But even then, it's like not 100% like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with you, or oh my gosh, I really like you. It's, oh yeah, I really respect you. But usually in those cases, if it's not like 100% love or whatever in the games that make you like the characters. But in games like Arknights and Limbus Company, they might grudgingly respect you if they didn't like you before, but it doesn't mean that they're gonna show that they like you. And even then, they might still not be comfortable with you. And that's something you can definitely sense in some characters for Arknights and Limbus Company. And these are characters that are like actually pretty big and major characters, not like side characters, you know? So that's one thing I really enjoyed, but I'm getting off script, or not off script, but off topic, so let's keep going.
By and large, a shithole of a world to live in, and that is what makes it feel real. It's not, oh, we wanted to make the Vatican, so we made this place full of guns and crazy people legally bombing the streets. Instead, they did that, but also realized that since a significant chunk of the world also somewhat follows Laterano's religion, they can be used as a country to foster talks of peace with others, paired with how they largely stay out of wars, minus their wars with the Sarkaz, and guess what? Laterano is a good place to hold these summit of nations. Enter guide ahead where this happens. And this interconnectedness makes the plot of Arknights so much better, because when you play an event or main story chapter and something significant happens, you know that will in turn affect the world at large. Unless an event story is really isolated to how it is on its own, which some are, a lot of the plots having far-reaching effects in the world makes it feel real. And that, paired with literally an entire timeline about the history of Terra, with Hypergraph even making lore books for it, shows why the world building is in a class of its own. And there is more to talk about why it cooks, but I actually want to switch gears to Project Moon's works. Yes, I know, it's me, Sano, the biggest Project Moon hater, actually about to compliment their games.
That's how you pronounce it.
Oh, what a surprise there, ain't never seen that one before. So Project Moon actually does worldbuilding in a bit of a different way to Arknights. Little preamble. These are the 3 games PM's made, they all share the same world. Now the world does feel very interconnected, similar to Arknights, but what makes it feel different is it treats everything like it's already existing. Now that probably makes fuck nothing in terms of sense, but here's the thing. In Library of Verona, a character called Malkuth says she comes from a nest with no color. Nests are the sort of big city of all these different districts, A to Z. Z isn't on the map, but it does exist. And anything outside of these nests are called the backstreets. So when she says that she comes from a nest with no color, you would expect like some general explanation to that, right? Yeah.
Nah, it was really no color.
Some years because this line was never explained until Limbus Company, where you can see in T Corp all color has been stripped away and people need to pay what
Quite
time
literally.
to return color to objects. A lot more to dive into there, but we're moving on for now. But T Corp and how their nest works was mentioned, though they never dived into it. It was said like a basic fact of the world. Oh, one nest just has no color. Everyone knows this. And they didn't care to explain. Now, of course, that style of introducing the world isn't the bog standard. They do explain general world-building stuff from time to time, like the protagonist of Verona, Roland, telling Angelica about the world because she spent her life sheltered.
I think one of the things that I find to be so special about Project Moon's style of writing, though, especially when it comes to world building, is that it feels very much similar to when you move to another country. The I guess culture shock that you slowly experience is very much how it feels when you're playing the game. So what I mean by that is that people talk about things as if you would already know it, which is also the case when you move to another country. Until you say you don't know it, then that's when they typically try to explain, but in the end, you end up looking into it yourself. So the little facts that you hear about the world itself from the characters is very, or what you experience yourself is very much reminiscent of what it's like to live in another country and trying to understand the culture and live there and make a home there. I think that's something that I found to be very interesting about the world building presentation here, because typically most games would prefer just spitting out all the lore and the world building, which is fine. That is also a good way to go about it too, if you just want to go straight into the action after you dump all that lore and world building. But for Project Moon, it's a bit different. They reveal it to you slowly and but surely. And I think Lobotomy Corporation did a very good job in the way someone who is amnesiac would actually understand the world. And what I mean by that is that he knows he has a job, so he does it. But he doesn't like fully understand everything that's going on and everything about the corporation and the world until he talks to the people and experiences certain situations. So that's another way for someone who has amnesia would obviously try to understand the world. They're not going to be like answering questions or asking questions and getting answers, like a whole paragraph answer every single day. It's just things slowly get revealed and you pick things up, and then the more things are reoccurring, the more you'll remember it.
And by that I mean she spent millions of years, thousands of miles underground being pretty much tortured. But, you know, minor things aside, Roland acts as the introduction to the world. And for Limbus, Dante has amnesia, because it's a gacha game, of course the protagonist has to have amnesia. But it also works as a canon way to introduce the world to the player. But it doesn't feel like stuff is popping up when we see it. The world is like they already have everything planned out and are just showing bits where it's relevant. That's not to say it's all planned out, because dear God, there's no way it is. We know they got some general planning for their works,
we don't know.
but
It could
no
be.
way every single thing is fully mapped out. But hell, another example is R-Corp. In Lobotomy Corporation, they're just some rabbits that show up when you press a button and they kind of go gorillas bananas killing everything. There's a lot of them and they don't really dwindle in number. I couldn't tell you why. Probably just a game
that was fun.
thing. Then Verona.
I didn't play at all, but
for the
that was
R-Corp
fun.
section in it. All in all, not that important to the main plot of Verona. But it's revealed that the singularity of R-Corp is cloning. That is why they have a near infinite amount of soldiers, but to fuel this cloning they need energy, which is why they were at LobCorp's command, because they used their energy. They were on a contract. And that also explains why we could take them in Runa, because that was after LobCorp fell, which meant that they didn't get the energy from them to just overwhelm the library. It's little things like this where it feels like everything just makes sense. The world isn't only explained at a time where it's important for the plot and that's that. Instead, concepts are brought up and when they're mentioned, they might not actually matter. They're not entirely brought up as a talking point, but as something that exists in the world, and as times
Yep.
change, these little, mostly ignorable details make a lot more sense in the world. Sort of like a mystery box way to tell a story. I mean, the best example is how all of the games show the railroad tracks around the city. We do not know shit about these railway tracks or why there are trains running on them, but in every game PM has made, we've seen these same tracks, but the explanation is for the future. It's not relevant now. To some people, this can be a little off because, to put it simply, we just want to hear more. We got all these different places in the world, and after years, we still don't know what a good chunk of these places' singularities are. A singularity is sort of like.
But that's what makes it more exciting for the players and viewers to want to delve into, to learn more about the world and get those tiny bits of hints and understanding of the pieces that you feel like you want to learn more about, but you don't have any information about them on right now.
A big piece of tech that has a corporation built around it, which is also probably a good time to say, yeah, the world of Project Moon is a dystopian mirror of how capitalistic South Korea is, because that's where the company Project Moon is from. But all of these wings have some singularity they're built around. F Corp has fairies that can unlock anything physically or conceptually. The newer G Corp singularity is the ability to control the weight of an object. Yeah, maybe it can actually help take the weight off of me having to carry my fucking team in Marvel Rivals. The older G Corp gave people insectoid augmentations. Don't think about it too much. J Corp can lock or steal anything on a conceptual level, like locking someone's ability to speak about something. K Corp's got some ampules that can instantly heal anyone. M Corp has, okay, this one's a little weird. So they got something called Moonlight Stones, which basically protects your mind. Like any mental pain, it shuts off, and they can amplify a single purpose for you to focus on, or it can be a mental barrier. N Corp has canned experiences, which when you take one you get to experience whatever is in the can. The most popular of which being the canned suicide feeling. Make of that either being horrid or wholesome, as you will. P Corp makes objects able to bend instead of break. Boring, not gonna lie. T Corp can control time. Major Sigma energy, much.
Hey, if you can bend things instead of break things, I feel like that would be a pretty interesting thing, especially when it comes to architecture. Like, let's say instead of breaking a brick, you can bend it. I don't know. I feel like that would be super cool.
Cooler than Piss Corp over there. U Corp is known for their ability to keep food in stasis, being forever fresh, and the Resonance Tuning Fork, which can fuse two objects together into one, and can split them apart in one. And W Corp is one of the most interesting ones that really show how the world ticks. Because as I said, the city is being held up by all these different districts, each of them having their own singularities that they revolve around, which must be kept as secret as possible, mainly so a rival wing doesn't steal their idea and take them out of business, thus causing the wing to collapse until a new one can take its place, but also because they may be exploited for business. Like K-Corp uses video footage of tragedies to get this eye to cry and then uses its tears, which are refined into the healing ampules. Then other wings started to pick up on the fact that K-Corp seems really interested in buying footage of tragedies, so they started charging them more for it. But the case of W-Corp is interesting. So a wing fell and their technology became known to other wings, the ability to travel to a different dimension. On its own, not much to be honest, but W Corp still bought that technology and they used it in warp trains, which are trains that are so fast they'll get you to your destination in 10 seconds.
Yes, and take 1,000 years,
easy trip. And the way they do that is by teleporting them to a different dimension. However, to the passengers, the travel is not just 10 seconds. In fact, it actually takes thousands of years. But that brings up a new
perfect.
Which is when you trap people in a train for thousands of years, they will inevitably go insane. The most gruesome example of which being shown in Rana, where the passengers try to kill themselves but can't die. And learning of this newfound immortality, they start to hurt themselves just to feel something, some stimulation, anything to keep them from going insane. This may work for some months, hell,
erase from my memory now.
Years, but inevitably, everyone goes insane, to the point of making their bodies into flesh melded together and bits of pieces lining the bus as decoration.
No, that's the fault of the doctor.
Almost every single warp train. But to the public, there's nothing wrong with them. You go in, 10 seconds later, you're at your destination, no harm, no foul.
Didn't Tom Mary ended up
actual singularity is the ability to return something to its previous state. So long as the passengers' pieces are still in the train, they can be restored to how they were before the thousands of years, memories included. But then, why take thousands of years? If the warp trains can go into a different dimension and teleport people to where they need to be, there's no way it's gotta take thousands of years, right? And more importantly, why don't they age or die? That's because W Corp uses a device from T Corp that collects time, thus helping to power T Corp's singularity, which includes the use of time. Those thousands of years are used as something to sell to T-Corp. They don't need to take thousands of years, but it pays them, and the passengers can be reverted to how they were pre-torture, so no information about how terrible they are comes out. Because of this, they have protocols in place for when colored fixers, basically some of the strongest fighters in the city, take their trains. And to the wealthy and powerful, information about how W Corp trains are not the funnest is known. But because of that, they have stasis chambers in first class where the wealthy can pass those years by without being conscious at all. And guess what else? They got energy from L Corp, and because it fell, they're not doing the best business-wise. But if they were to collapse, T Corp would be put in a tough position because of their arrangement. And that perfectly shows the world of Project Moon. Corporations helping each other only if it's good for business, as they prey upon the population in any way they can, even torture. It's dark, it's gruesome, but I'll be fucked if I can't also say I can fully see corporations in the real world doing some of this shit if they are able to. Every aspect in the city feeds into its overall vibe, an oppressive place where profit and protection means more than a soul. Because of that, you have gangs spring up called the syndicates, most of which are run by some of the most insane individuals you've ever seen. Either by having the rumblings of the city scrawl out orders for people to follow for protection, and if they don't, they're executed, or by having a book of vengeance where you never once let anything slide. Any transgression gets marked down there, and the person who did it hunted. Now, because these syndicates exist and terrorize people, fixes are also a thing. They're basically like syndicates, but considered the good guys, though I struggle to say most fixes out there are a beacon of morality. As to actually get help from them, you need money. Everything in the city is built around the same theme. Even though the locations may vary from a library to a mega corporation or the Great Seas, it all serves the same theme Project Moon wants to convey. But the most important thing is that individually, the parts still work.
This song reminds me of
I'm terrible at explaining. That sounds like a line ripped from Destiny's dog shit writing. What I mean to say is that there doesn't feel like a loose end in the world, minus the concept incinerator, which is a device that can delete concepts of things. I mean,
we don't need to talk about that.
Hand wave just how many holes that open up, but dear God, it just existing is whack, especially how it appeared at first for a comedy event. But that aside, and this also goes for Arknights, there's no individual part of the setting that feels like it is ripped from a different game. There are parameters set for the world and everything exists in them. Like for Limbus, guns are a thing. So, why doesn't everyone use them? Well, the head, basically the government of the city, taxes the fuck out of them because they don't want killing another person to be so easy. So using guns and buying ammo isn't the most cost efficient, which is what the entire world is built around, money, going back to the capitalist theme. And those that have a lot of money, they can get shit that's stronger than guns. It's little things like that, the various places in the world being actually explored, the fact their history is so intertwined, hell, the fact the places in them aren't just tropes, repeating for the millionth time, that actually makes these worlds feel believable. They didn't go through a checklist to say, our world is X, Y, and Z, and here is why you should care. They bring you through the world like a history teacher passionately speaking about what they love. In the case of BM's world, that history teacher was probably a sadist based on how fuck shit gets there, but to me, these little things
Arknights whale, yes.
Amazing. They're believable because anything mentioned in the world is with consideration of what else is in the world. The places in them aren't built up with only that area in mind, and they don't fall for whatever generic trope people have come to hate. The world also isn't used as a plot device. There's no, oh, we need to go get the sacred hero's sword, so let's go to the village that only exists for the sacred hero's sword and nothing else. The people there exist for no other reason. And the overall theme of the story isn't broken for some self-indulgent want of what they want to make in an area. To me, someone who isn't really a writer, minus that one fanfic I wrote for charity, and maybe upcoming to two, we'll see how this year's charity goes, but I wouldn't say I'm like an expert in the realm of world building. But I love these two games and wanted to just ramble on about why their worlds have had such an impact to me and why I love them. I mean, shit, I've contemplated making some hour-long videos just going through the full history of these worlds. The only thing stopping me from making that is those videos are going to be like months long to make. So for now, I'm gonna just settle with this self-indulgent rant of a video.
Was that it? I guess that was the end. Wow. Hey, he's playing the Dream collab. Yes, that was a fun collab. I haven't beaten the final boss though. I'm struggling with that in the normal mode. But either way, this was a very fun video. I don't know if there are other videos that talk about like the similarities in how they present the story though and concepts for Limbus Company and Arknights. But I do think they have a very similar way of going about things too, aside from those slight differences, which makes them both very strong in their own way and being able to stand on its own. But I do believe that Project Moon's director did have some influence in his writing from Arknights. I mean, considering the fact that he's like a huge Arknights fan and is like a total whale. I mean, look at his account, my gosh. But judging from that, I do wonder just how much influence he did get from Arknights, or if there were any. I mean, I know that a lot of his the chapters in Limbus Company are based on real novels, but I do wonder if his writing style and presentation was influenced to some degree by Arknights, considering how much he loves that game. It's just something that I think about. I do wonder what your thoughts are in regards to that, and what you think about the world building for those two games, and what other games are out there that you believe mastered world building within the gacha sphere. Because obviously for single player games that are not live service, it's a lot easier to build the world and make the story very carefully. You have plenty of years for that. And you're not on a time constraint for the most part when it comes to writing the story. As in, you don't have to take like a month to like make it and then release it or whatever. I mean, I know that for some games, they actually are a year in advance in their planning. But I don't know if that's the case for Arknights and Limbus Company. I don't think that's the case for Limbus Company. But I do wonder if there are other games that are live service that you believe has a very good world building aspect to it. Not character driven, but world building. It's kind of like One Piece, where the world is clearly alive and full and whole on its own. So even if the main characters weren't there, it wouldn't matter, because the world will move on its own, that kind of thing. So yeah, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to support the original video. And if you enjoyed my reaction to it, then be sure to give it a like, comment below, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.